Oh, there it is. This meeting is being recorded. Okay. Okay, I pressed it, sweetie.
Julie, where are you?
She's muted. She's in the Washington, D.C. airport. She's at the airport ready to leave to Washington, D.C. There we go. Okay. Scott, it worked.
Kelly.
Okay,
Hi,
why is
Kelly.
that noisy? Let me see if I can mute that, whatever that is.
Mute me quick.
I can't. Let me see. What is that one? Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mary, that
Phone is me because I have to leave. I'm
leave.
actually going to leave in about 20 minutes, but I want to try to listen to my phone.
Okay. No problem.
Oh, good. You got it
It
muted.
was going back. It was going back and forth. Okay. We have a good. And we've got, hi Robin, I haven't seen you for a while, and these are two Dianes, and Diane gave an update. She's got her arm still in a sling, but doing well. Luis is in Mexico on a trip with Pam Fulcher and Lisa Bear Frederick, and is in a $1,200 suite that he got for free because he's jobless. So I said, I want that jobless and $1,200 suite.
The only Scott and I can get sweets like that. That's it.
There you go. Anyhow, in Houston, that is Paula and Cindy. That's Cindy's new name for the Houston and Coastal Bend Multiple Myeloma Support Group that's starting next week.
Wow.
So anyhow, you're all up to speed now.
But I do want to say, though, that, you know, Diane, we've been worried about you, but she's not doing totally fine. Her arm is in a sling.
That's right. No. She isn't, and she still doesn't know what's causing.
Yeah.
So yes, we will keep her in our prayers. I'm gonna mute all. Yes. Okay. And just so before I forget, I've added something, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen in a second, but I've added a Word document to the chat if you want to save that to look at it later, because we are going to attempt to go from, we're actually in chapter 15, but we're going to cover chapters 13 to 23 today.
10 chapters.
10 chapters, which
Well,
we'll explain in a
today's going to
second.
be a little different.
Yeah.
I hope you'll bear with us, but I think it's necessary.
Okay, so first we're going to start with prayers. Diane, first of all, for doctor's wisdom to figure out what's causing this pain in her bicep, and so she doesn't go to a million doctors and have no answers. Continues prayers for Carol Kutnick. She is, she got the stent and she's doing well, but the prayers I'd asked for is, bottom line, she had a stroke in her eye, and so she has limited vision in one eye. And given the fact that A, she's an artist, and B, she loves to read, please pray for some correction to that sight in her eye. When we got on earlier, Virginia gave us an update on Kay, that she's lost 60 pounds and is still very upbeat, but going through rounds of chemo, having a hard time. So keep Kay in your prayers. And Kelly, she's on, and Virginia gave us a little update before you got on, Kelly, that she's still having a hard time or continues with pain. So never let her leave your prayers. And Monica, who's Jean's friend, and her father.
Two things. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with someone email that has some health issues and never says anything, and I never asked for prayers. And they actually told me other people deserve the prayers more than me. And
It'll work that way.
no, none of us deserve it. It's not about that, but we care. And so I think that part of our function as the body is to pray for each other. Remember that our daughter Julie Being here has let us get to doctors that we couldn't get to when we were in Rockport. We never got the kind of medical attention that she's getting. Poor thing has just slipped through the cracks for a long time. She's had headaches in addition to everything else, and these little, we'll call them tics, maybe they're little mini seizures, but they gave her some medication that's been out there. I mean, somebody else could have given it to her. They just kind of act like, we don't know what that is. And that part has stopped. That part is not plaguing her. And we have her in the clinical trial. Keep her in your prayers, but the medical profession serves a purpose, obviously, and we have gotten her in to some medical care that we haven't seen the likes of. So, there's some thanks there. There's always still concern.
And with the one, and we're going to address this in an email I'm going to read here in a minute, but we want to also pray for our country, Israel, for the people in Iran, and
yeah, it's going to be different today. Feel free, though, if you want to click in and you want to make comments. This is where I really wish we were all together. God, we come before you. We come together every week, and we come to you and we raise our voices. And today is no different. These ones that we have mentioned by name, others that don't want to be mentioned by name, you know our hearts. And we continue to remember those that are in the middle of chronic conditions. It drains at our spirit. It drains at our look on life. And that's one of the things that we're confident. We don't always understand the way our bodies break down, the way things progress. But you put us here for a reason, and you specifically said that we would have life but have it more abundantly. We're bold enough to pray for that. Help our understanding. There are things going on in the world. At the same time, there are things going on in these scriptures that we're studying. Help our understanding. Show us the message that you have for us in both. Amen.
I'm going to start with reading an email of a friend of ours or someone we knew in Israel. I've read from an email from her before. Her name is Dara Short. Her and her husband are originally from South Africa, and they are Messianic Jews that live in Israel. And if you ever get the opportunity to go to Israel, she has become a tour guide. If we go back to Israel, we would definitely use her. But this is what she wrote yesterday. And before I read it, I just want to say one thing. And she has some updates if you want to follow her on Facebook. But when I read her emails, I realize she knows more about what's going on and knows more about U.S. history and its interaction with the Mideast than most, including myself sometimes, people in the United States. So, keep that in mind as I read this. But she wrote this yesterday. Update to all our friends and families on Facebook. Thanks for all your thoughts, well wishes, and prayers for those who pray. Thanks to everyone who has written throughout the day to see how we are and how we're doing. It really helps a lot to get through these intense times knowing that you care. Today we watched a regular length movie for over 8 hours. This is because of all the breaks we had to take to go to the bomb shelter. We lost count of how many alerts we received, the number of sirens that blared, and the hours we were standing and sitting in the bomb shelter. One of Anthony's students, based closer to school, counted the number of booms, interceptions he heard. and this afternoon it was close to 100. We didn't hear as many here on the coast, but we were aware of numerous missiles that fell in open areas, as well as damage caused by interception debris, and about 90 people who suffered from minor injuries, mostly from people falling on their way to and from shelters. We were also told by the Home Front Command that some of the ballistic missiles Iran sent our way were armed with cluster bomb warheads. Iran did the same in June of 2025, so we know what they're about. These awful bombs open up like descending and release around 20 smaller munitions, each with around 2.5 kilograms of explosives, reaching a radius of around 80 kilometers. This is obviously to cause as much damage to humans as possible. To be clear, with R-200 fighter jets, the Israeli Air Force says it carried out its largest ever strike in its history, but none of it was with the intention of hurting civilians in any way. The extensive strikes target Iranians' ballistic missile launchers and air defense systems, dropping hundreds of munitions on some 500 Iranian military targets in western and central Iran. Israeli sources claim that the volume of munitions used today exceeds that of the 12-day campaign 8 months ago. In Hebrew, the official name of the operation is translated Roar of the Lion, and the United States calls its part of the operation Epic Fury. From what we understand, this is going to last a while. Many thousands of reserves have been called to report for duty. Over 1,200 missiles were launched from Iran. The Jordanian army claims that it successfully intercepted 49 drones and ballistic missiles aimed at its territory. American targets in the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar were also attacked. Iranian General Jafari claimed that Iran has launched their missiles today, and soon they will reveal weapons the likes of which we have never seen. Remember that the Islamic regime, just a few short months ago, said its hostility towards America was principled and essential, not tactical, as Iranian lawmakers chanted death to America and death to Israel in Parliament while marking the anniversary of the 1979 U.S. embassy siege in Tehran. The Iranian lawmakers declared that Iran would not yield to foreign pressure, insisting that the conflict with Washington is rooted in fundamental principles and not negotiable disputes such as the nuclear issue, which they call excuses. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's anti-American and anti-Israel rhetoric is evidence that Iran remains a global threat. This was on the anniversary of the 1979 storming of the U.S. Embassy by followers of Khomeini, his father, who held 52 American hostages for 444 days, an event that entrenched decades of confrontation between Tehran and Washington. But to be sure, this fight is not against people. It is not even a religious war, and definitely not about land. It's about ideology. Israeli hackers broke into a popular prayer app in Iran this morning and gained access to phones of millions of Iranians. Through the hack, Israel sent messages calling on the people to defect and revolt against this brutal regime. In the meantime, Hezbollah has also tried attacking Israel, and the Houthis, 2,000 kilometers away, have promised to join in. We are probably in for a rough few days. Our bomb shelter occupants changed throughout the day. We started off this morning with nearly all the residents, and in drips and drabs, they went to family or friends' homes that have reinforced rooms within the house, instead of making the journey up and down the stairs to our communal shelter each time. Our own family, with their little ones, have gone to our son-in-law's workplace to be able to stay in a safe room and avoid the same in their building. After the Sabbath ended, residents who had been away came back and were making plans to bring mattresses and bedding to the shelter because carrying babies up and down the stairs is too much every time there's a siren. We all shared how we haven't eaten because there hasn't been time to prepare food because of the sirens. My group, which was scheduled for 2 weeks from now, has canceled. The powers that be didn't ask about my schedule. We have had a full day, we've had a lull now for about 2 hours. So we're wondering when the next barrage will come. Maybe we'll have a reprieve until daylight. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. Our Shabbat was anything but restful, but the customary greeting for the coming week still applies. How do you say that? Shabbat Tova? Mm-hmm. Shabbat Tov.
So I hope that wasn't, it gave you some idea about what's going on. There are big things afoot. And strangely, there are big things afoot in the study that we're going through. I do need to translate one thing. We are calling this Operation Epic Fury.
Oh, Fury.
Epic Furor would be totally appropriate.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, can you guys hear? Can you understand what I'm talking? Okay.
Yes.
Somebody's. Do you need to remute?
Go ahead.
So, we've gone through 12 chapters in Isaiah, and we're now hitting this section that are called the burdens. It's sort of like judgments against these different people. And I told Mary, if we read them all verse by verse, you'd revolt. People would just quit. They sound pretty much the same. These people are about to get punished. These people are about to get punished. And after a while, you begin wondering, isn't this pretty much the same thing? Just substitute the names. And it's not quite, but it kind of is. And it's one of those places where people sort of get the idea that what the Old Testament says is God's just constantly hitting people with a big hammer or lightning bolt or whatever. And that's not it. If you'll sort of bear with me, this has been coming at me for the last several weeks. I'll be bold enough to say revealed. But because of this, something has sort of come together, and I want to see if I can help you to understand it, because it's important. For the first 12 chapters, can we all understand that the overriding theme is that Israel is in trouble? Israel is about to get wiped out almost totally because of what they've become, because they've turned their back on God. But then comes these 10 chapters about all these other people that are they're also in trouble. They're also about to get sort of wiped out. And I've always been bothered by it. Why is that in here? What happens with our scriptures? And if you're asleep, I'm going to try and make this not difficult, but we've been through a lot of churches and we see what gets taught. And what has been taught, I know, to a lot of you, is sort of like the Bible is full of these little vignettes, these little teeny lessons that tell us something. And they're just sort of strung together. And it's confusing. And it gets to the point that we just go, I'm just going to throw it all away. I want you to imagine you've got a recipe that from some, the best chef in the world, and he's going to teach you how to make a pastry, this really light, perfect pastry. And it goes through all of this description of how you sift the dry ingredients together and how you use room temperature milk and not cold milk out of the fridge. And then it says it gets to the eggs. And it says put in 3 eggs, but only the whites. Never use the yolk of the egg. Now, if someone says, oh, look, the best chef in the world says we must never use egg yolks ever. That's what happens with the Bible, is people take these little out of context things. The recipe is not a recipe about the use of eggs. It's a recipe about making this light pastry. So he never said never use egg yolks. And yet that's what happens with our Bible teaching, is we've all had this stuff thrown at us when there's a teaching about one thing, and then there's one little piece in there, and they pull it out and they say, this is a general rule for your life. Forever and ever, amen. This is what we have been taught. And there's a danger in taking a teaching about one thing and using it as a teaching about another thing, because it's not about that. So let's shift back to Isaiah. We've gone through how many chapters?
So, and let me just share, just so they can see where we are. So let me just share this real quick. So this is, I told some of you that were on here early that I put this in the chat as a Word document if you want to keep it. As Scott said, the first 12 chapters, Israel's in trouble because they have not followed God. The next 10 chapters, and we've done, last week we did 13 and 14, and so today we were supposed to start at chapter 15. But chapters 13 through 23 are 15 burdens, and Scott explained burdens are...
It's sort of like a judgment, but it's a payment due.
So I gave you, in case you want to go back and read them, and we're going to, once Scott does this general overview, we're going to touch upon a couple of them. But what I listed with you is all of these areas, and Scott will explain the importance of that in a second, and what chapter they're covered in. Okay?
Yep.
So now I'll stop sharing and go back to you. Yeah.
All right. So we've had 12 chapters of Isaiah delivering this judgment and this prophecy about Israel. They've gone too far, they're in trouble. And suddenly we get 10 chapters. Babylon, you're in trouble. Philistines, you're in trouble. Moab, you're in trouble. It's just like everybody's getting zapped.
Why?
And they're just thrown in there, kind of like you could think these little vignettes. And it gets repetitive. Pay attention to this part. The things I'm about to tell you are fact. The conclusions are my own. But I think you're going to see what I'm talking about. So, in this region, what we call the Middle East, it's between Egypt and up north, what was considered the northern kingdom of Israel. But this is really a very small area in terms of the world. It's just not that big. And our whole Old Testament has been about this little small region. And if you look at the list, we're going to go through it, but Mary showed you the list. What is it? Do you want me to put the list back up, Virginia? All right.
Yes.
We've heard about, through the Old Testament, we've heard about the Philistines. We hear about the Moabites. Damascus is modern-day Syria. Cush is down in... All of these people, the Edomites, you can see the list, Tyre and Sidon. This is the story of our Old Testament. Can you take it off now? Because I'm going to see people's faces. I'm going to be sure. They're at war with the Edomites. They're at war with the Philistines. And all of these groups of people go through times where it seems like they're just the biggest, baddest foes you could ever have. And it's really a small area of
The world.
the East over there, the world. Something is about to happen. Just like it seems like some big things are happening in the world right now. But these little local conflicts have been what we call the Middle East. What's going to happen over the next 700 years? The Messiah is going to arrive, and these powers that get prophesied are going to be global. They're going to be what amounts to global in that part of the world. But you have Babylon is bigger and badder than anybody who's ever existed. They're so much bigger than the Philistines. They're so much bigger than the Moabites and Egypt. They're bigger than the Edomites. All of a sudden, the stage shifts from this little area to this. And what this is about is the events are now going to start unfolding. They're going to lead us to the arrival of the Messiah, the arrival of Jesus. Babylon comes in and takes all the leaders and the temple and the priests and the gold in the temple, takes them all up to Babylon and leaves Israel destitute. Right behind them comes the Medes and the Persians, who wipe out Babylon. It's the Persian emperor Cyrus who sends a small group of people back to rebuild the temple. If you're not aware, when Babylon comes in, they destroy the first temple. And it's because the Persians then arise that the temple gets rebuilt. And that temple has to be there when Jesus arrives. Things have to be in place. And right behind that comes Alexander the Great. And Alexander rolls up more of the world's land than anyone ever has. Alexander dies, and I hope this isn't, maybe I should have pictures, but when Alexander dies, four of his generals wind up taking over the empire. And there are two of them that they come together at Israel. That's the border. Down in Africa, it's Ptolemy, and up above, it's a guy named Seleucus. Now, that doesn't seem that important. But it is. Because by the time Jesus comes, the Greeks that have been in charge have turned the high priesthood into not even an elected office. They appoint the high priest. It's no longer a high priest of God. The Greeks, these generals of Alexander the Great, appoint the high priest. And it's such a lucrative position that they actually start buying. High priests actually pay the Greek generals, the Greek government, for the privilege of being high priest. When Jesus arrives, the priesthood is so corrupt that it's no longer about God at all. Because of Alexander the Great. That's because this is all prophesied in Daniel. The other thing that happens is the Greek language becomes what's known as a lingua franca. It's the common language. Everybody around the world, you can't go anywhere in the world, in that part of the world, and speak Greek without finding someone who understands and can talk to you. When it comes time to carry the gospel, to explode it out into the rest of the world, the Greek language is vital. Translating this into all these little regional languages would be next to impossible. And finally comes the Romans. And not long before Jesus' time, the Romans suddenly come in and they take over this part of the world. And the Roman occupation figures so much into Jesus' birth and into his ministry and into what happens that winds up when Stephen is killed. People just explode out of Jerusalem and go all over the world taking the gospel with them. So what I'm telling you is this story that we're reading, together with Daniel and Jeremiah, is the unfolding. It takes what has been this region of Israel and prepares it for Jesus to come, for the Messiah to come, and prepares the world for that message to explode out to everyone. And it is, if you, I mean, I can't get into all the history, you already hate me enough, but you can see looking at this. So now when we think about this list, these 10 chapters, Philistines, you're going to get wiped out. Moabites, you're going to get wiped. These are all the people we've been hearing about. And the message here, the recipe is, you're no longer important. You've been important all this time. You've reached the end of your part of the plan. They're still going to kind of be around, but as real powers, no. Babylon's going to own this region. The Medes and Persians are going to own this region. Alexander the Great's going to own it. The Romans are going to own it. These people become insignificant. And it's being told here, and so it seems really repetitive. Oh, look, I'm going to destroy the Philistines, your cities, this is going to happen. Egypt and the Cushites. Yeah, that's what's being said, because this is suddenly a time of a total change in the world. It has been building up to the arrival of the Messiah. The one other thing that I hope I can convey is we keep seeing references in Isaiah, and we saw them in Daniel, that are quoted. They're exactly the same picture as Revelation. It's not an accident. The changes that are taking place because in Isaiah are bookends with Revelation. It's the arrival of the Messiah, the first coming, and it's the second coming, and this is all beginning to unfold. It winds up taking 700 years, but if you see the plan unfold, all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, we don't really need to know, each one of the names. If you read it like a recipe, God's going to wipe these people out and what he's doing is preparing the stage for the arrival of Jesus, for the arrival of the Messiah. With that in mind, we're going to go back to this list. We're going to look, there are a few specific things about these different groups of people and reasons that I think should be helpful to you. Maybe you recognize it when you read the Bible on your own.
And like Scott and I always talk about, because as we look at different churches, we find some churches that do topical sermons. We found for a while we really liked people that just did verse by verse. But we realize that you really need a combination. You need to do verse by verse when it's important, but you also need to zoom out and not always do the microscope, but sometimes do the binoculars. And today is a binocular thing. So we're reaching back out and looking at these 10 chapters. And it's actually, theologians, which are Scott's favorite people in the world, actually call these things the burden prophecies. And there's 11 burden prophecies, and I've attached those. We went through 2 of them in detail, and we're going to touch bases on the rest of them. One of the things, if you look at these 10 chapters, you can see, and I'm going to share my screen for a minute. We're going to touch base first on chapter 15, which is the Moabites. And but what you can see is each of them starts with this concept. This is the burden against Moab. So you can go through these 10 chapters and circle. This is the burden against Damascus. And as Scott says, I mean, it's beautiful writing, but after a while, it's sort of blah, blah, blah. So, Scott, we're just going to touch base on the Moabites. I'm not going to read anything on this one. I'm going to stop
Read the first couple of sentences, if you don't mind. This is the burden against Moab. Ar in Moab is ruined, destroyed in a single night. Kir in Moab is devastated, destroyed in a night. Dibon goes up to its temple to weep in its high places. Moab wails over Nebo as well as Medeba. All right, we can stop it there.
Okay. And it goes on for 2 chapters like that.
So, yeah, 2 chapters. If we read this to you verse by verse, and we did it with 10 different groups of people, we just tend to sort of begin throwing this stuff away. The Moabites, all the way back at Sodom and Gomorrah. If you remember, it's his nephew, they treat him like a brother. Lot lives in Sodom or Gomorrah. I don't even remember which one, but he lives at Sodom and Gomorrah. Horrible place. Almost like, I'm not going to say that. Horrible place. And God says, I'm done with them. I'm about to destroy the place. And Abraham pleads for Lot. And so Lot gets warned. These angels come and literally grabs him and his wife by the arm. And they say, look, you guys got to get out of here now, because the destruction is about to come down. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. And we know the story. What it teaches us is that Lot and his family were so attached, they were so entrenched in all of the stuff going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, they didn't really want to leave all that bad. His wife, the story of the pillar of salt.
She looks back.
But it's because she's looking back. Lot and his 2 daughters flee up into the hills to a cave. And the daughters say, at this rate, we're never going to have our own children. We're never going to be the mothers of our own tribe. And they get Lot drunk, and they go in and sleep with him when he's senseless. And the oldest daughter conceives a son, and his name is Moab. Moab, that's the Moabites. They're cousins to the Jews, to say the least. They know about God. They've been rescued by Yahweh, and yet they don't turn to him. There are times where the Moabites should have helped Israel, should have turned to God, and they just don't. And so within this burden against Moab is all of this stuff that we're all supposed to understand. But remember, Jalou Clumpian, if you want to admit her. Remember, this is not a story about the Moabites. This is a story about God preparing this part of the world for the arrival of the Messiah. Now, the prophecies tell them why this is going to happen to them. You deserve it. But it's not about you. All right, let's move on to the next.
So, and the point there is, this was a burden that was placed on Moab that was it was way overdue.
But God could have done it at any time.
Right.
And this is what bothered me until recently about this section. Why did he permit it for so long? Why didn't he deal with these people? I mean, he knows what they are. Why? Because they had a part to play. And their part in the big plan is over. These little regional powers, these little things, are going to get just swept up by these gigantic empires that we're going to read about here and in the book of Daniel. So they're the Moabites for you. This is a sort of a final judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah in a way.
So we go all the way down to the sixth burden, which is against Egypt. And it's covered in two chapters, chapters 19 and 20. And remember, we also told you with all of these prophecies that it can go from near-term prophecies to, what's going to happen to the Assyrians or Babylon or some of these countries, to the midterm prophecy, which is the coming of Jesus, the first coming of Jesus, to end time prophecies. So, and one of the ways you know that is it says in that day all of a sudden, and that usually pertains to
End
time prophecies. So I'm going to take you now to, let me share, and I'm going to go to chapter 19. So they're talking about Egypt, and Isaiah starts talking about the destruction of Egypt, but then he goes into a section, and I'm going to read chapter 19, verses 16 through 25. So all of a sudden he goes to end time prophecies. And I want you to keep in mind that when we get to this, he talks about Egypt and Assyria. Remember, Egypt is below Israel, and Assyria is to the north and to the east of Israel. Also remember where is Assyria today? And Iran is part of that, you guys. So this hit me when we're studying, and all of a sudden I got that post from Dara Short. I want you to listen to that in the light of that Assyria is Iran today, you guys.
It's current events, and it's also part of the end times.
In that day, the Egyptians will be like women. They will tremble with fear beneath the uplifted hand of the Lord of hosts when he brandishes against them. The land of Judah will bring terror to Egypt whenever Judah is mentioned. Egypt will tremble over the Lord of hosts, over what the Lord of hosts has planned against it. In that day, 5 cities in the land of Egypt will speak the language of Cana and swear allegiance to the Lord of hosts. One of them will be called the City of the Sun. In that day, there will be an altar to the Lord in the center of the land of Egypt and a pillar to the Lord near her border. It will be a sign and a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. When they cry out to the Lord because of their oppressors, he will send them a savior and a defender to rescue them. The Lord will make himself known to Egypt, and on that day Egypt will acknowledge the Lord. They will worship with sacrifices and offerings. They will make vows to the Lord and fulfill them. And the Lord will strike Egypt with a plague. He will strike them, but heal them. They will turn to the Lord, and he will hear their prayers and heal them. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. The Assyrians will go to Egypt, and the Egyptians will go to Assyria. The Egyptians and the Assyrians will worship together. In that day, Israel will join a 3-party alliance with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing upon the earth. The Lord of hosts will bless them, saying, "Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, my handiwork, and Israel, my inheritance."
Do you hear how weird that is? I mean, do you hear how truly odd? He's describing a time when Egypt will worship Yahweh, when Egypt and the Assyrians will worship together. They're gonna,
and
have
Israel too. All 3 of them there'll be alliance with the 3
and
of
at the
them.
very end, this 3-way alliance, it says that will be a blessing upon the earth. Egypt and Iran and that area and Israel will be a blessing upon the earth, and the Lord of hosts will bless them, saying, "Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, my handiwork, and Israel, my inheritance."
It hasn't happened yet.
Can you picture today, when there are bombs falling all over the Middle East, these people being friends with each other
And worshiping Yahweh.
And worshiping Yahweh. Now, Mary mentioned that Assyria today is the area of Iran, part of Iraq, part of Turkey, You know the area up in there. That's because the Assyrians of this time, or that's not because, but the Assyrians of this time are going to get wiped out. And the people are going to scatter all over the world. They call it a diaspora. That's the same thing they say about the Jews. The Assyrians, the old Assyrians, today, all the descendants are overwhelmingly Christian. That's going to surprise most people.
And they don't live there anymore.
And they don't live there anymore. But there's an indication they're going to come back. Well, when is that going to happen? That's going to happen when Jesus returns, or in the time leading up to it. So here is this judgment against Assyria, but at the same time, and why? Actually, this is against Egypt. One other thing I guess I meant to mention during this on Egypt. When Joseph gets sent, sold down into Egypt, and there's this enormous famine, they run off to Egypt to be saved from the famine, right? Egypt looks like the big kid on the block at that time. But at its mightiest, Egypt never compared to Babylon. Egypt never compared to the Medes and Persians or to Alexander the Great or to Rome. This says, Egypt, you've been important up till now. No more. You're going to diminish. And when the Romans are around, Mark Antony goes down to Africa, gets involved with Cleopatra, and they decide to combine their armies and they're going to attack Rome. And it lasts about 10 minutes. They come sailing in on ships, and the Romans it's so bad that Mark Antony and Cleopatra turn around and run back and leave their soldiers. The point in this is Egypt has been big, and suddenly Egypt is going to be small, and they won't factor in any major way until the second coming, and it's there. You got the next one?
Yeah, and we're going to read chapter 20, and it's a very short chapter, and it continues. Remember, they go back and forth, and this continues. There we go. This is also Egypt, and this is going back to the midterm or the mid prophecies. Before that year, the chief commander sent by Sargon, king of Syria, came to Ashdod and attacked and captured it. The Lord had already spoken through Isaiah, son of Amos, saying, "Go remove the sackcloth from your waist and the sandals from your feet." And Isaiah did so, walking around naked and barefoot. Then the Lord said, "Just as my servant Isaiah has gone naked and barefoot for 3 years, as a sign and omen against Egypt and Cush, so the king of Assyria will lead away the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Cush, young and old alike, naked and barefoot, with bare buttocks, to Egypt's shame. Those who made Cush their hope and Egypt their boast will be dismayed and ashamed. And on the day the dwellers of this coastland will say, 'See what has happened to our source of hope, those to whom we fled for help and deliverance from the king of Assyria. How then can we escape?'"
Okay. And I hope some of you have Bibles to read along, or I hope that screen is usable. So, we've been told Assyria is about to come sweeping in. We've also been told, you may not remember it, but the king of Judah, the king of South Israel, has tried to make an alliance. They said, rather than turn to God, rather than doing what we're supposed to do, and say, God, we've been wrong, we humble it, but we're calling on you, we're going to put our faith in you, they run off to Egypt, and Cush is North Africa, it's sort of Ethiopia area, but they run off to make an alliance with these North African empires or countries. They can't save them. Egypt and Cush together are not going to be able to save them from Assyria. Real big lapse of judgment on Israel's part. But if you read at the end, it says that the Jews, Judah, the coastland people are going to say, look what happened to our source of hope, Egypt and Cush. Those to whom we fled for help and deliverance from the king of Assyria, how can we escape? If they can't escape, they're bigger than us, we're doomed. Yeah, that's the message. Israel keeps turning to it says, see what's happened to our source of hope. Their source of hope is Yahweh. And they keep turning to...
They forgot it.
They forgot it. They turned to Egypt and Cush as their source of hope. And here's the prophecy. It's not going to do you a bit of good, guys. Assyria is just going to come ride roughshod. And it says they take prisoners from Egypt and Cush and lead them naked back to Assyria. They take them as slaves. Being a prophet is a really tough job, like real tough. And sometimes they're called on to do things as a sign, as a parallel to what's going to go on in God's judgment. So Isaiah gets told, take the sackcloth off your waist and take the sandals off your feet. Isaiah runs around naked as a sign of judgment against what's coming to Egypt and Cush. Israel's hope gets led away in chains with no clothes.
The final thing that we wanted to highlight in these 10 chapters on the burden of prophecies is in chapter 21. And this is the burden of the wilderness of the sea, which is of Babylon. But we want to show you, I'm going to share my screen, 2 verses that get talked about again in Revelations. So I'm in chapter 21, and this is the burden of the prophecy on Babylon. And it says, day after day, my Lord, I stand on the watchtower. Night after night, I stand at my post. Look, here come the riders, horsemen in pairs. And one answered, saying, fallen, fallen is Babylon. All the images of her gods lie shattered on the ground.
Yep, you can stop it.
Okay.
Stop the share. The reason we wanted to bring that is because this is not the first time in Isaiah that we have seen that quote, and we've pointed out that you see those exact words in Revelation. The angel comes sort of streaking across the sky, calling out, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. And in this prophecy, near-term prophecy, fallen, fallen is Babylon. The one in Revelation is a sign of the ultimate disrespect for God, the ultimate perversion and sinfulness. This one is a mirror of what's going to happen then. The point is this. This whole story, Isaiah, Daniel, Jeremiah, prophesies the changing of the world. The coming of Jesus literally changes the whole world. And everything before this in the Old Testament was building up to that. It was making things ready. And you have to see it. I mean, this has been around for thousands of years now. The prophecies foretold it. And it should be, it's a source of comfort to understand that this plan has been in place for a long, long time. The purpose in the Old Testament, I've told you, and this is my conclusion, but I believe it's true, is beginning from Genesis It's the story of the lineage of Messiah, the family lineage, for a reason. And now things have gotten to the point, 700 years is nothing to God. He begins stacking the deck in ways that make the world ready for Jesus' arrival, for his crucifixion, and after his death and resurrection, to then take the message to the entire known world. And the story's there. We just don't get told. I mean, it's really, really clear. So these 10 chapters we've just skipped past in one thing. If you want to go read them, you're going to see, it's going to say, Moab, you're in trouble. Philistines, you're in trouble. Those people are now being condensed. And the stage is set for big things.
And the quote we just quoted from Isaiah 21, verse 8 and 9 is found in Revelations 14:8 and Revelations 18:2. And I thought we would just end
good. Thank you.
with 18:2.
Thank you.
And so this is Revelations 18:2. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a lair for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, every unclean bird, and every detestable beast. All the nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her immorality. The kings of the earth are immoral with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown wealthy from the extravagance of her luxury.
The reason that's important, hopefully it'll be important to you, is to see how the words line up, how the images are the same. What John has revealed to him in Revelation is the same vision that Isaiah has 700 years before Jesus. They're so close, you can't ignore it. They're seeing the same picture, maybe for a different purpose. There's a little different teaching, but this is the sign to us that the stuff that we see going on around us today, for instance, is not an accident. God has a plan. He's always had a plan. The cool thing about it, the thing that she read about Egypt, is the plan is not just for Israel. We say, how often do we wind up saying that? How often do we wind up showing scriptures that point to the fact that God had a plan for Gentiles all along? We were always written into it. It's all about to come together. It's going to come together in Jerusalem with the arrival of Jesus and with the crucifixion. But it's always been part of the plan. And in the end, in Revelation, they're the Gentiles. There's Egypt. There's Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. There will be believers then from those places. And we think, oh, they're utterly godless right now. Oh, they're not, they certainly will never acknowledge Yahweh. They will never acknowledge Jesus. And there's our prophecy. That's us. So, God, the times we come up against these things when we study, we know that our words aren't sufficient. We trust you because the Spirit reveals things to our hearts that our words can't convey. And my prayer today would be that people who are seeking you would get that guidance, that the Holy Spirit will speak to us to see your hand in the world, to see the events that are going on right now and not be afraid, not be anxious about what it might mean, because you provide us with enough information to know how the story comes out. Give us that confidence. Give us that understanding and then let us use that to serve you better during our time. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys.
If any of that was too confusing, you can email me. Okay, I mean, I'll be happy. Maybe I'll send out a mass email. But it's not where you probably thought. If you've read ahead where this was going, if you read it on your own, you'll thank us, because you don't want to read 10 chapters of judgments against people. It sounds like you could take one chapter and just move the names in and get the judgment against the next people. That's no fun.
Have a safe flight, Julie. You guys enjoy your day. We are having beautiful, beautiful weather here, and we're going to take a bus ride of downtown Memphis because we still get to be tourists. And next week I'm going to make him go to whatchamacallit, where am I? Graceland. He doesn't want to go to Graceland, but I want to go to Graceland, so I'm going to make him go to
You
Graceland.
liked it.
Oh,
Going to
fun.
the Peabody also.
Yeah, we're going to be tourists for a while until we can. I figure we have a year to be tourists until it looks weird to be tourists because we live here. So
Happy birthday, John Paul. Actually, he doesn't have a birthday because his birthday is the 29th.
oh, that's right. Yes. Happy
Oh, my
birthday. It's
gosh.
not your birthday.
Every 4 years.
Thank you for remembering my non-birthday birthday.
Exactly.
Have a good week, you guys.
Have a
Thank
great
you
week,
very
everybody. Thanks,
Bye.
Mary
Bye.
Scott.
Bye.
Bye.